Hey all, and welcome to our first weekly report of Marvel superheroes. Before I start, I wanted to explain you what the idea is behind this video. So I will try to make a weekly video where I will showcase the decks I ended up drafting in that weekend, and I will feature the cards that I did dislike in the certain decks. On top of that, maybe we will have like some brainstorming thought process on how we think like meta is evolving. I guess like week 1 we will not be talking much about the meta, since like week 1 is usually the wild west of the format. And another thing would be that we can actually talk about the cards that I'm actually looking forward on maybe drafting the next week, or like some certain archetypes that maybe I did not ended up drafting but I would like to draft in the next week, so we can maybe mention those things as well. So since I am actually only playing Magic while I'm streaming, this week 1 I don't have many decks to showcase. We have 11 decks since the format was released on Tuesday, for me on Wednesday, and I ended up only playing 11. Next week I expect to have at least 15 decks that we can like actually try to cover and go through. What I would like from you guys is, if you are interested in any of the decks, to feel free to comment. And then like if you're interested in the draft portion, I can try to upload the draft portion. If you're interested in the gameplay of the second deck, I can upload the gameplay. Or if you don't even want the video, just like are curious about like some cards or whatever, feel free to leave a comment, and then I guess we can try to talk and cover the idea behind that as well. So without further ado, let's start and let's go with our first draft deck that we ended up drafting in this format. So let's check our draft 1 of the format. This, as maybe most of the people that did draft ended up drafting this week, I would say that this one didn't end up being the best. It does seem like a train wreck, but we did have some like pretty nice rares like Miss Marvel, Loki, and the Leader. Plus on top of that, an Extinction event that I ended up picking. The draft started with the Miss Marvel and Loki, so my idea was to try to end up in blue-white and have a lot of spells that could actually target my stuff. But since I was not finding enough playables, I had to end up going into the black, and with that, like I did pick up the Ronin, some equipments, Extinction event, and lands to support all of this. Overall, the deck did not trophy, it did end up on going 2-1. But the card that I was, let's say, mostly surprised with this one was the Ronin. Even though it was the splash, it was pretty strong, because if you can play him on curve and you do end up having the equipment, a lot of mana can be cheated in with a Ronin by just having a free equipment, even if it is a splash one, right? Because it does give 2 mana of any color. But it felt like a card, if it was good as a splash, I'm wondering how good it would be if you end up on just drafting it. So that was the big impression, or the biggest card that did leave me the impression after drafting this deck is, I want to try to make a Ronin Shadowstalker deck, and I want to see how black-white equipment deck does end up on playing. Overall, the cards here that we did have that were, I would say, whatever, were super Soldier Serum. I think we were missing a lot of the cards to actually make this card a bit better. We ended up on having some tricks that were giving creatures to our creatures indestructible, but I would say that this card in this deck at least wasn't as good as it maybe can be in some other draft decks. Echo was a card that I was actually interested on trying as well. I don't think this card is bad as some people are saying. I think like this card, like the power level does depend on like how many of your other creatures can trigger this one, or you can actually copy the triggers, and then the power level of that one is just going up or down. With this deck, I mean, it wasn't really that much. Maybe we can get another Ronin -4/-4, or a draw with Miss Marvel, but yeah. Echo with this deck was maybe not as exciting as it can be in some other decks. Second draft deck of the format, we ended up in a green-white. I would say this was a pretty strong deck because the rares we had were really strong. We had a Captain Marvel as maybe one of the strongest rares in the set, and on top of that we did have the Yennefer Walters, or the Hulk, She-Hulk. So overall the plan of the deck was to just like curve out and play one of our rares. In this deck, one thing to mention, we ended up on playing 16 lands, and we played 2 rapid rescues. idea behind this one was only way that I did see this deck maybe losing was like to flooding, so wants to mitigate the flood possibility. And on other than that, this deck did not really have many cards that were misses to this. We had like 2 strikes, go nuts, and punch with the backup that were only the cards that the rapid rescue could not find. I think like when you have the bombs and you're like really interested on finding them as fast as possible, this card gets better, right? Because like it helps you dig through the deck and finding them. Cards that did like surprise me with this deck was Dr. Samson. I think just like when it has like when the deck has like counter team and your creatures can keep on growing, or you have a decent amount of ways of putting counters on your creatures, this card just gets better. And on other than that, it does give us a lot of mana to function with, either that being used for the power-ups or just like making sure I play a Marvel on turn 6 and use the power-up immediately. Brokers were actually pretty good in this deck because of the Dr. Samson. On the tap ability, putting 2 counters on 1 creature has felt really good. And the training regimen actually ended up playing really amazing because of the Death Touchers. Putting all the counters on the Death Touchers and giving them trample was just a pretty solid way of making sure you end up ending the game. This deck ended up going 3-0, and even though we started with a red pick, I think our first pick was the Scarlet Witch. I was like interested on trying this one. Usually in week 1 I try to play as many rares as I can and then trying like to see how the rares do play. This one ended up green-white because both of this were actually passed to us. I think this was pack 1 pick 2 and this one was pack 3 or pack 2 pick 2, but yeah, both of the rares were passed to us. Overall the deck was awesome. All of the 3 drops felt good and the rares here felt good. Mana was actually pretty solid, so yeah, pretty cool deck. Draft deck 3 of the format is mono blue. This is something that I actually would have not expected to be the draft deck 3 of the format, but yeah, I ended up drafting mono blue with this one. This team was Artifact Matters, and we were trying to use the Hydraulic Helper as best as it can be used. On this deck we did have the Tony Stark that could actually help us on finding the artifacts, and we had the Ultron, which was pretty decent win con, actually ended up winning us up one of the games, plus double Iron Lad to help us on like getting more artifacts. This deck ended up going 2-1. The loss that I think we got was because of the 2 games we played. We never did like draw this one on the curve, and the deck was really like winning or losing depending on how much Hydraulic Helper was being played on turn 2. The fact that this card can actually help us on cast cards and use for power-ups made a whole difference. Card that I was really excited with this deck was the Rewrite the History. Even though I did not have many instant and sorceries, this card was pretty damn easy on making sure to get to the plan for because of all the tap creatures we did have. So yeah, the deck plan was overall to like try to play the curve, play the Doom bots, maybe get them as fast as we can on becoming a bigger flyer. But I think the big issue with this deck, even though we were mono blue and playing 16 lands, I was kind of too much relying on the Atlantis attacks being our finisher. As a way of like bouncing their stuff and then making a 6/5, but I was not really that good on getting to the 7 mana. So I think like if I would do this again, I would try to take more Hydraulic Helpers, I would try to take more even the Quinjets so that I can get the mana, and I would definitely try to play the Rewrite History again with this deck. I think the plan of just like recasting this card over and over again and then having the Wing Harness to be equipped to the Hexproofer would be a way of winning, but unfortunately sometimes you don't get all the cards and your little idea does not end up on working. Some cards here to mention that I was super excited about was Shuri. I definitely saw the power of this card with the Ultron when you can actually get to make another Ultron and then try to go nuts. And Secret Invasion has felt really good as a way of like dealing with a creature on the board and then making one of your helpers into a relevant threat. Draft deck 4 of the format was the blue-black villains. This deck Started with the Master of Evil, if I remember, as a pack 1 pick one, with followed up another one, and then I think it was a Construct a Cosmic Cube pick 7, where I said to myself, okay, we are all in on this, we have 2 tutors for it, now let's just try to give our best on having as many cards that do say draw. The deck ended up going 2-1, and I would say the deck didn't feel as good as I thought that it would feel. The big issue with this deck was that actually I do have to sacrifice first 2 turns of the game. I have to go turn 2, discard this, into turn 3 playing a construct or a Cosmic Cube, so that I can start getting my plan to work. And then, yet again, we really had a big issue of dealing with the stuff on board. I think if I would draft this idea again of the Construct, the Cosmic Cube, and Master of Evil, I would give my best on having as many cruel alliances as I can. I think on the draft I was offered some, but I ended up not taking them. I think this was a big card that I would really like if I had more, because the fact that you can deal with anything and then gain the life, even with the tempo loss you started with, would feel really amazing to have more of. Cards that were obviously good was the Madame, where she makes a connive, then makes like a lot of more 2-1s. Kang was actually pretty decent, even though at first I did not expect him to be as good, because I was actually scared that he doesn't connive when he enters, that he has to attack, that it will make him worse. But it's still like a relevant threat that they actually have to deal with. Moonstone was great. The fact that you can actually get to play the cards you discard was awesome. Grim Reaper was a threat they had always had to deal with, because the fact that you discard this and then have an option of for 4 mana returning it felt really strong. Scientist Supreme of Aim was actually maybe not the greatest in this deck, but it's still a 2-drop that they have to sometimes deal with, because we have 2 Forges, and then the fact that you can actually pay the life to maybe draw 4 has felt like really strong. Card that I was maybe disappointed with, but yet again, like if one of the decks was for it, it was definitely this one. This one was all about villains, was the Thunderbolts Conspiracy. I think this card is not bad, but the problem with this deck is, as I did mention, that this deck is sacrificing the first 2 turns, right? Turn 2 and turn 3 to develop the Cosmic Cube plan. And then the fact that that is happening, this card was most of the time dead in our hand, and the fact that we did not have creatures on the board made this just worse. I don't think this is bad. There were some games that I did win because I did play this, and it plays really well with the Enforcers, but I don't think that this was objectively correct to take when I was going for this plan. I think in other decks where you play like a 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, and then you slam this, it's way stronger. But with this one, it hasn't felt really good. Draft deck 5 of the format was a 4-color Shenanigans. This deck, the whole point was to try to make the Mind Stone as best as we can, so we were trying to take a lot of ETB creatures that are pretty awesome if we can flicker them, while having like skulls that would allow us to actually make sure to cast all our cards. This deck actually played better than I did expect it to play. Cards that felt really strong were the skulls, especially with the Captain American Living Legend. The fact that you played this and then can use the skulls to get actually 2 mana has felt really strong. I think the match that I ended up losing was the match where I did not have the Mind Stone, and I ended up going 2-1 with this deck as well. All the matches where I did play the Mind Stone, I ended up winning, because flickering the Troopers for 2-1 for free with the Menace was awesome. Flickering the unit for a draw was awesome. You can expect how great it would be to flicker the Killmonger and to deal with anything. So the deck was not bad, but the fact that when it doesn't draw the Mind Stone is having a bit of an issues. There was one game that I ended up winning where I was having like 2 lands and I had a skull with Captain America. I ended up not drawing more lands. I mean, the fact that I'm playing 16 as well with this one, maybe I should have went for 15, because the deck had to kinda high roll a bit. But yeah, the skulls were great. We ended up like swarming the board, and then we had like, I don't know, like 10, 4 or 5, 15 power coming through, because like Troopers were making creatures and we were just like so efficient on the board state. Overall, the deck was cool, but yet again, it is the classical thing when you draft the deck around the card, you don't draw it, and then you end up on losing. Draft deck 6 of the format, I would say that this was the one that I was disappointed with. On first glance, it maybe doesn't seem good. Here I'm splashing blue, I'm splashing for the giant growth, but this deck, in my opinion, had a really strong game plan. So the game plan of this deck was to try to use the vision quest and to go find the vision, followed up with a giant growth or any 1 mana spell to make sure that this guy gains the double strike. With that idea, I really wanted to try this 1-drop because I felt like having the mana with this deck will be super important. And I did face this card, and against me it has felt like a pretty solid 1-drop on the ability that it does have, especially when you are actually splashing, right? But the deck did not play as good as I did anticipated. This one was really, in my opinion, a cool idea. We did really have a good way of going through the deck. We had many ways of returning the vision in case he does die, since we have double White Widow. I actually ended up having 3 of them, but we only played 2 in the end because we had a lot of 4-drops. And the deck was just, I think, like a cool idea because it is a 1-turn kill and it's super hard to stop it, especially the fact that I can play the vision early in the game. Don't really mind him if he does die, since like this does return it from graveyard and 2 of this do return it from the graveyard. One of the cards that I was impressed with this deck was definitely the Jessica Jones. I think this card is pretty amazing. If you have not tried it, I highly recommend on you trying it. But yeah, the deck has been a failed experiment. I think during the draft that this deck would have played better if I not ended up in white, but actually ended up in green, so that I could maybe try to make giant growths a bit better with this deck. Maybe take them more and then like try to take the green creatures to curve out. I mean, if you think about a giant growth with Jessica is like looking at 3 more cards. I'm not saying that this would be an Ancestral Recall, but you would see 3 more cards, right? I just feel like the giant growth could play really good in green-red, and the giant growth definitely plays really strong with the vision. So yeah, maybe next time not end up in white, but actually try to end up in being base green-red with this one. One more thing to mention with this deck was the Baxter's Building. I've been impressed by this card. There were a lot of the moments where both me and the opponent were looking at each other, both of us make the board, and then this land was doing the heavy lifting of like making sure I am winning that board stair. Draft deck 7 of the format was again a 4-color. This one featuring Avengers Assemble. The whole idea when we did get this draft, this card, was to take as many heroes as we can and then trying to make them as best as they can be. And this deck actually did have a lot of rares. We did have the Storm, we did have the Sentry, Cloak and Dagger, Wandering Wasp, and yeah. The overall idea with the deck was, like I said, play this. Once you play this, I think you're winning most of the time because like the Anthem and the Flash, and then yet again having a +2/+2 with a passive draw was just like pretty strong to beat. And I think I ended up picking the Sentry, so I was really interested on trying to take as many cards that could actually be able on dealing with a token. So you're seeing like the Crusade being played, and even Atlantis Attack, which on the first glance maybe doesn't belong with this deck with a mana base, but yet again, I actually didn't feel like the mana was bad in this deck. The mana played pretty decently, if I do recall. Storm was pretty awesome, just the fact that like opponent creatures that did have flying, and a lot of things in the set do have flying, it does just stop them. And with the Sentry it was a bit of a combo as well. Overall the deck I would say was okay. The rares were carrying, Avengers was awesome, mana actually ended up on working fine. On this deck I would really like if I did have more skulls, but we ended up on not having them. And one card that did, let's say, surprise me was the Reptile. I think this one with the threat of activation is really there. I did catch a lot of people off guard. I mean, it is the week 1 of the format where people don't know that this card does have reach, so that's a thing that was happening while playing with this deck. This was definitely my favorite deck that I did have in this week 1. When I did finish the draft, I thought that this deck would be a train wreck, but only when I did have the chance of playing with it, I saw how strong actually the deck is. This card was trying its best to make the Hawkeye do its best impression, We did actually have 2 Hawkeyes, this one as well, and we were playing triple bow. So if you're not aware of this card, I think this is my definitely favorite card of the week 1, if I would have to choose one. And why is that? Because this one, when you have a Hawkeye, actually does deal, if you equip the Hawkeye to it, it does deal 4 damage to opponent. Other than that, a lot of people maybe do miss this, it does work whenever you tap a creature. So even though I did not maybe notice that while I was drafting, we ended up on taking some creatures that were able on tapping themselves, and the play pattern of this one was you attack with a creature that does have the Hawkeye's Bow, you do deal whatever damage you can, and then you equip it to any creature that you can tap on their turn, like for example the Rough Security Officer. And this deck felt kinda unstoppable or unbeatable, because early game we have the pressure, and then the late game, whatever board state we do make, the Hawkeye's Bow was winning. Definitely really strong deck. I think next time I draft this, I want to try to take as many more 1-drops, because like 1-drops do play really well with both of the equipments. The fact that the equipping cost of this one is 1 is pretty damn strong. And then yet again, I want to take as many creatures that can tap, just because 1 mana is to equip. If I do have the mana and I do have the creatures, I just move along the equipment, and then I just deal a lot of damage if I do have the Hawkeye on the board. One more card that impressed me with this deck was, because I was most of the time attacking with 1 creatures, was the Luke Cage. This one felt, I mean, unbeatable. If you equip the Hawkeye, it is like a 5 power attacker. Most of the times they don't have 6 toughness, so this was always a relevant threat to them. And yeah, this draft deck was trying to make its best usage of the automatons with a Widow's Bite. The idea was that if I have a lot of cards that can actually possibly grow this, and I have the Widow's Bite where I can actually give it a Death Toucher, it feels like I'm most likely case where I will be ending the game. We were playing stuff that could keep on making the treasures, either being used for growing this or maybe for the bullseye, with the maybe Hydra Assault Robot being there to ping them off. This deck was ending up on splashing, but I think when you have the Stark Industries and you have some basic land cyclings, it's not that hard to splash like a 1-pip. It was maybe trying its best to, or maybe it wasn't supposed to be splashing this, but yet again, the mana was not an issue, right? We had 3 cyclers, we had this one, plus a Cosmic Cube that could actually possibly cheat in the creature. The deck ended up going 2-1 if I remember. I don't remember the loss, but the deck has played pretty well. Overall, card that I was super impressed on how it did play was the Wrecking Crew. I mean, all the modular abilities on this one have felt really good, and I think that when I was building this deck that I actually did end up on messing up. I did have the Grim Reaper in the sideboard, and most of the times I was boarding it in. I actually did miss the fact that I actively do want to try to land cycle on turn 2, and then if I do play the Grim Reaper on turn 4, it is like, hey, you gotta deal with this. If you don't, I get a Sentinel back, I get a Scientist back, because both of this are the creatures that I ended up on cycling, so they had to like have a removal for this one. When I did see how the Hawkeye, Bow and Young Avenger played together, I really wanted to try to see how it would play if I play the green-red variant of this, because this one can give you a Giant Growth plus a Super Strength where you can actually equip it on the Hawkeye, so the Bow does deal more. Deck did not end up on trophying, but it did feel really good. I think Jessica Jones, with the fact that, like I said, you can grow it with a Giant Growth, or maybe even the Hawkeye's Bow, or even if you think about it, Super Strength, it is going through a lot of the cards, and then it gives you a lot of option. I don't yet again remember the loss. Oh, I actually do remember the loss. It was against the Black-White equipment team deck. I think on that match, if I recall, we just ended up on having like 2 hands where we mulliganed and then didn't draw anything. That one was just a loss. We ended up winning the game 1 against them, but just the game 2 and 3 we did draw brick, and we never were able on like developing the board and then use our cards. Overall, the deck has felt really good, I would say. Jessica Jones yet again impressed me, Bow did impress me, Hawkeye did impress me, but other than that 3 that I already did see in previous decks, Iron Fist has felt really damn good with this deck. When you have a punch, when you have like the go nuts with it, when you even have like, I don't know, equipment plus on it, and then like you can grow its power a bit more, it has felt really good. So the last deck that we're gonna check is the Grixis, where we were splashing the Wrecking Crew, and this deck was showcasing the Tony Stark. The deck ended up trophying. I think it was maybe the best deck I did have in the format. Card that really did impress me, because it was the first time I actually did end up on drafting it, was the Photon Blast Barrage. This card was most of the times like 3 for 1, because like I do have like a way of accelerating with double units as well. So this card has felt really damn strong, because like you just pick up the creatures you want to pick up, and it is maybe one of the most efficient removals. Plus, on top of that, I did have that cheese win where I did Photon Blast Barrage my Hulk, where I did deal 5 damage to it. And if you're not aware how that works, if you do this on 5 and while they're tapped out, you most likely did win the game, because it was 15 damage and then it was like 11 trample coming through. This deck was pretty good. It did even have the Hammer of Thor, where I was like really hoping of playing the Tony Stark Invincible Iron Man and then like equipping this and dealing 10 damage in haste. It never did came up, but yet again, it was maybe a possibility that it could happen. Forges were great. The fact that this card was giving us 3 for 1, because it does draw 3, has felt great. Helpers were awesome with this deck, and yeah, most of the time we were just winning with Tony Stark and casting it in and then like trying to end the game as fast as possible. And as much as I do appreciate the Wrecking Crew in this deck, it did actually ended up being in as well. I think this card is just awesome, and if you do have like, I don't know, a Quinjet plus maybe a Lance plus a Lane Psyker, I think if you can, that you should be trying to splash this one. So when it comes to like what would I want to try to do for the next week, I definitely want to try my best on yet again trying to play the bow, because like I said, I was super impressed by this card. So I will give maybe the best if it ends up on being the open lane, to try to draft the bow deck again with a Hawkeye, and then try to play this equipment as well, because it has felt really good. The fact that it can like, we tap the creature, then we can untap it, then maybe tap it again. So this card is definitely the ones that I would maybe try to draft for the next week, and then yet again maybe try out the other archetypes that I did not play, maybe Simic, maybe Orzhov. But yeah, there is a lot of things that this format does actually end up on allowing. When it comes to like maybe how I like the format so far, I mean, it has been refreshing to me, even though it is a Universe Beyond, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't like that they are printing as much product as they are. This one has felt good comparing to previous ones, because it actually is a 10 archetype format, which we didn't have in a decent amount of time. I think overall, when it comes to limited, that it should always be in some variation of 10 archetype format. All 5 of maybe the other ones don't need to be as much supported, but I think, like I did mention on my stream, like for example the previous one, which was Secrets of Strixhaven, I think they should always put at least a signature signpost card. Like for example in SOS, it would be cool if there was like a Azorius, Celestia, and so on, so that we always have like, if the lane is like that and I can end up on working it, just gives like I think a deeper thought process on when it comes to like making the decks. I hope you did like this video. Like I did mention, I'm gonna try to make this a weekly update where I'm gonna showcase the decks and then like mention the cards I did like, and we will like talk about like the speed of the format and everything like that. As I did say, on week 1, I don't need to mention it much, it's week 1, people are still experimenting, and we will see how it does develop. But yeah, I am liking the format so far. I am enjoying it. It is fresh. It does feel a bit Prince, where the rares are really strong and they can take control of the match. But like I said, it is a new format. You cannot hate the new format. You're playing something new. So with that said, I'm still enjoying this one as well. If you made it this far, one thing that I would love to ask you, as I did mention in the beginning, comments do help me out a lot, and it helps out maybe algorithm picking up this video, so maybe more people could see this. But yeah, comment on like how you like this series. Would you like to see this thing happening more? And yet again, comment the decks that you would maybe want to see, if you want me to like video edit them and upload them on YouTube. I will catch you next time, and hope you do enjoy the Marvel superheroes. Cheers. And yeah, one more thing. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. That means a lot. I'm trying to get to 1K subscribers so that I can monetize this YouTube channel as well. Okay. Did I lose? I feel like I lost now immediately. I mean, it sucks because I have a cube. They just like picked up everything I have for free. But I think I lost. This card just destroyed me. Man, sucks. I wasn't the play. I had a really good plan and then they slammed this. I mean, I can counter this. I mean, I'm gonna lose to this card as well. Like, I think the chances of winning are really slim. Though, if I can get this, I can take control and just pay enough life, right? Yeah, I just gotta, like, get this to 7 and I win the game. Okay, freak it, we play. So I'm at 5 if this resolves. Hopefully it does. Come on, give me a block, please. Okay. Okay, I think we won. Guys. Aha, you have more rares. Noted. Wait, why stop? Why stop?